Welcome back to Abundant Culture Podcast,
where we dissect the mindsets and tactics of the true beasts of business.
People like Gary Vee, Grant Cardone, and Warren Buffett.
All to create a blueprint to experience life more abundantly. Hey everybody, Joseph here. I'm so glad that you decided to tune in for another episode because this one is extremely important and highly overlooked a lot of times. You know, as entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial people, we're out there, we're gaining clients, meeting with people, selling our product, our service, our experience, and all of these different things. But sometimes we forget the most important component, and that component is meaning. You have to have meaning behind what you do, because if not, you probably won't do it for long. And you will miss out on that passion that you used to do it with. So today, we're interviewing somebody who is going to be talking about how to find meaning in the work that you do every single day. And today, we're going to be talking about that with my good friend, Dr. Benjamin Ritter.
So, Ben, we are so happy and excited to have you on to the Abundant Culture Podcast because we believe that you can add so much value and we love what you do. So before we get into any of that, can you go into your backstory? Like, how did you get into business?
Yeah, so there are a lot of different threads, but I think the most relevant one right now is that I was an overworked and underutilized employee. And then I was also overworking myself as an entrepreneur. And I just never really found meaning from my work, from my business. And I find meaning from my cat. Let's say, this is Seema. She'll say hi. So I told you she'd say hi. She loves the sound of voices. But I never really felt aligned to my true self. I was successful, but didn't really feel successful. And two things really helped me kind of take the leap, take the plunge to kind of pivot and turn away from what I was doing at that time. And one was my current business dissolved. My business partner and I just didn't really feel like it was beneficial to us to continue going. And then also I was promoted into an executive level position at my full-time job. And usually, on paper, promotion is good, but it really stole away the meaning that I felt that was actually in my work. And so I was kind of sitting there and with these two major events happening at once and saying, I need to do something. And that was this pivot. And that's how Live For Yourself Consulting was born.
That's amazing. So can you talk a little bit more about kind of, I guess, the exact moment where you realized you had to make the choice to really go out on your own and really just do your own thing? And what did that moment actually really consist of during the time the promotion was going and dissolving the business and everything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I remember two specific instances. So at this time, I'm coaching kind of as a side hustle in a different realm, a different industry. So that's where, why I decided to go the coaching route. I had a passion, it aligned with my values. I had some skill sets in it. But I was walking into work. I was promoted and kind of the dust settled. And it took away the meaning I had from it. So I worked in healthcare. So I worked initially on projects that led to basically improved patient outcomes, improved quality of care. So I felt like my work had a direct outcome and meaning. And I was promoted to an executive level position that was more capital based, operations based, project management based. I was the dust settled. I kind of learned my job. I felt comfortable in it. I felt confident in it. And I was walking into work because I could walk to work. It was that good of a job. It was really a good job. And I was looking around me and I was really disengaged. I was pretty sad. Really just kind of not looking forward to the day. And I looked around and I saw other people's faces and I'm like, wow, they don't look happy either. and I was a coach. I worked with people on developing their inner leader, their inner self, and helping them see that their emotions were really a product of themselves. And I wasn't coaching myself. And there was a huge gap that I saw in just overall fulfillment and happiness in my own self, as well as the people around me as I was walking to work. So at that point in time, I really, the pivot was longer. It was like a long-term play because I ended up going back to school for 3 years and developing this brand, this new coaching brand. But that was really the direct moment where I said, why am I doing this to myself? I have the power. I have the control over my emotions and self, and it doesn't have to be this way.
Wow. So would you say that when you made that decision, was the promotion kind of like one of those things where it was like a bump up in status, but it sounded like it was almost a bump down in meaning and the things that you actually desire for your inner self? Is that kind of what happened?
Yeah, and too often, and I see this with clients a lot. You get someone that's achievement oriented, that has like, they're an entrepreneur, so they're innovative, they're creative, they're hustlers, they grind, and they want to excel. And so they grind and they work, and when they don't feel successful, they work harder. But the problem is, success is, you know, your definition of success is really depends on how if you feel you're successful. But being achievement oriented, you barely ever feel successful. So the promotion, even though it was a bump in status, it kind of highlighted the fact that this wasn't the career path I wanted for myself. I never meant to really be in healthcare. I don't see a future in what I'm doing. I can't imagine another 5 or 10 years doing what I'm doing right now. So, even though it was a bump up in status, it was kind of like it put off the alarm, bells. It was just like, hey, pay attention.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And which was wonderful because it knocked me out of this, the hustle, grind, excel, achieve mentality. It was so I'm actually pretty grateful for it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And you brought up a very important point that we really wanted to touch on. You talked about entrepreneur and intrapreneur. Can you kind of describe the differences between those two things?
Yeah, so I initially worked just with like entrepreneurs and business professionals that felt stuck and unfulfilled. But usually that leads to pivoting career wise or starting your own business. And if you don't have the mindset and the resilience that is needed for entrepreneurship, you're just going to end up in the same place. End up disengaged, unfulfilled, feeling stuck, not feeling successful. They share a lot of similar attributes, the entrepreneur and the entrepreneur. They're both innovative, they're both creative, they both look for solution, they're solution oriented. But the entrepreneur is that within an organization. I mean, there's a lot of extra stuff that comes with being an entrepreneur, stuff that maybe you don't want to do. I mean, in reality, a lot of entrepreneurs as well, if they don't really manage other people, tend to have just created their own job. They're really a solopreneur.
Yeah.
But so instead of just doing the thing you're passionate about, the thing you love, you're doing every single other task to make sure that you can put food on the table.
Yeah.
I always would ask a client before we started working together, do you really want to start your own company, or do you want to find meaning in your actual work right now, or in the career that you're in at this very, very point in time? Because it's possible. It's impossible. I mean, it's possible to feel empowered and accountable and meaning in your current state. Because being an entrepreneur has a bunch of other stuff that comes along with it. So entrepreneurs are people that want to create, they want to innovate, they want to hustle, they want to be successful, they want to kind of take risks, but within corporations, without the risk that comes with being an entrepreneur and running your own business.
And that's amazing because I never heard a term for it. And that idea has been something that I've been talking about for a while, but I didn't have a word for it. I was just calling it, people who are like kind of entrepreneurial, but they, they're not going to own their own business or whatever.
Like we call them like employees, like entrepreneurial employees.
Yeah, basically something like that. So it's amazing to actually have a word for it. And it's great that you actually service that clientele, because I feel like they're so elusive. Like they're similar, but there's these nuanced differences that are very, very important. I feel like.
And those differences, though, put them at risk for feeling that their work isn't meaningful.
Yeah.
The potential stagnation, just being managed and just having someone that tells you what to do as an entrepreneur is really hard because you are so self-directed, you are so autonomous. And so there are some special techniques and strategies and leadership kind of tricks to kind of make sure that these these employees, these promising employees, these employees that can actually, you know, create some pretty great impact inside organizations, so they aren't lost.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that you do at the Live for Yourself consulting? Like, what is it? Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, so there's a couple different segments. I work with personal clients outside of organizations, because when an employee wants to pivot, when they want to start their own company, and organizations aren't really happy about that.
Yeah.
So I work with them outside organizations and personal coaching, basically helping them build greater levels of clarity, confidence, and control to help kind of lead themselves towards this business that they want to create, and to live a more aligned life. But inside corporations, I actually will work with employees and senior leaders to help them feel more engaged with their current work. So on one end, there's senior leadership management styles and strategies that can connect with employees to help them really feel more empowered and engaged, as well as strategies for employees to implement to take more control over their work and to feel more connected to it as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And can you talk about what some of those strategies and also processes may actually look like inside of your consulting? Because like, I feel like this is a very important skill, but I feel like it may not be as, tangible as other things for other people. So could you talk about a little bit what those strategies might actually look like to kind of get a clearer understanding of what those entail?
Yeah, and so they're a little different internally and externally. So which one would you like me to focus on?
Actually, I think I want to focus on the internal one first, and then we'll go into the external.
Yeah. So really, what I do first with senior leaders, if you're looking at like leadership and management styles and strategies, is help them, alter their mindset a little bit in terms of what is their role as a leader. Is their role to motivate employees? Well, you can't motivate someone because motivation is an emotion. So really, your role is to create an environment that motivates your employees. And you can't, it's very hard to do that on a large scale. So when it comes to a leadership strategy, it really is about personalizing leadership and taking a human look at what leadership truly is. And so how can you build trust with your employees, and how can you trust first, and how can you figure out what environment your employee thrives in? So what relationships do they really enjoy? Who do they really like working with? What customer issues do they continuously come up with that maybe they might have solutions for? What resources do they need to do their job? And and everything from just like a stapler to a working printer to pens or post-it notes. So what do they truly need to do their job easier? What work do they love doing? What work do they hate doing? And if you can't delegate work out that they don't like doing and create more work they like doing, how can you at least recognize them for the work they dislike doing to kind of associate positive feelings with it? And then also, where do they find meaning from their work? So meaning doesn't always have to be, this overarching sense of purpose this person feels with what they're doing, because some people, their jobs don't really lead to that. Like a window washer may not really feel that window washing is his sole purpose, every single day, but he may be washing those windows because he really is, he's trying to put his son through college. And so understanding the fact, what are the reasons why your employees come to work, and then talking about those things and keeping them front of mind, as well as sharing your own purpose for working each and every single day to create that connection with your employees. And that actually is all encompassed in one specific model called the team model of managing to motivate, and helps senior leaders create an environment that engages and empowers and cultivates meaning for their employees.
And that's amazing, because we just interviewed a few people for some spots we're going to be filling in our business. And I remember it's funny that these things will come up in conversation and you kind of push it to the side because you don't think it's that important. So I even found myself doing that once or twice. But I was actually interviewing this person, and they actually told me why they wanted to work there. And it's like, I feel like there's the obvious reason of, you know, ... But then they'll tell you the deeper stuff as well. Like, oh, I'm working because I want to take care of my child, and I want to do that in a space that is, you know, hip or fun or whatever the case may actually be. And I didn't realize how important that actually was until you actually just mentioned it. So I'll definitely pay more attention to that.
Yeah, and there's always more to anything anyone ever tells you. And you know, what's underneath the first layer and the second layer and the third layer. And when you get through those layers, you really start getting to the core of someone and what they really connect to. And if you can give that to someone in a way, you know, not actually giving, but if you can keep that front of mind to them and connect with them on that level, they will stay with you forever. And they will work in a way that they've never worked for anyone before.
Yeah.
And so those things you learn, I mean, it really is important. You may laugh at this, but open a spreadsheet up, put the person's name in, you know, and put the comments in that you've just learned, because we are human. We are going to forget things.
Yeah, definitely.
They're going to slip our mind. It's a fact of nature. So keep notes.
Yeah,
really keep notes.
Yeah, and you mentioned that there was an external component of, I guess, for people who wanted to actually venture off and maybe create their own business. Is that process similar, or is it different? And if so, what does that kind of entail?
Yeah, and it's different in some ways. A lot of this understanding of like what people connect to can be related to what you connect to. So, you know, kind of staying internal for a moment. I even work with frontline staff and employees to help them feel more empowered. So, you know, too often as an employee, we feel like we don't really have control over our job.
Yeah.
But we do. We 100% do. And if you just feel confident enough to take some steps forward, you can really change how much you feel engaged and love your work. And it is the same. Those are the same components in terms of, can you alter your actual work to really connect to what you truly enjoy doing and delegate out what you don't like? And the things you do have to do, can you make it more enjoyable by maybe listening to a podcast or music, or giving yourself an award for doing it afterwards, like a treat? And can you work with people that you love? Can you work near them, work close to them, connect with them on a daily basis? Distance yourself from people that stress you out. And it's hard to do when it's your boss, but it's possible. And then also, just, can you reconnect to the meaning behind your work? So there are a lot of similarities in terms of engaging employees and then also training leaders. And I just wanted to touch on that as well before we kind of move into the entrepreneur and the career pivots.
Awesome. Yeah.
So those components can relate directly into how you need to lead yourself if you are starting your own venture, or if you are pivoting career-wise as well.
Amazing. Very, very useful.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's pretty much just like, how can I make what I'm doing more enjoyable, so it doesn't suck?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's one component of self-leadership. And if you are gonna live a fulfilling life, you really do have to be your own leader. And I kind of bring up the point of, who do you think leads, like the top leader? Like, so a leader has his boss, and that person has their boss, and that person is her boss, and that person is his boss. But there's someone at the top, right? And the person has to lead themselves. And so ultimately, the best type of leader is the one that can lead themselves first. And we all can do that. We all have that power. And so the most important leader in anyone's life is yourself. And that plays a huge role when you decide to change careers or to start a new business. And there are kind of three pillars of self-leadership that I work with my clients on, and also a system that you can use to ensure that you're not just trying to be successful, but you're being successful in a way that will create meaning as well.
So you kind of touched on that a little bit. Can you tell us about the live system and also the 3 C's of leadership that you mentioned, I think, in your website?
Yeah, the 3 C's of self-leadership are basically kind of a descriptor of the self-leader, the person that's leading themselves. The list system, so for Live For Yourself Consulting, is really a way to ensure, it's like a systematic process that you can follow to ensure that you are leading yourself in a way that creates meaning.
Awesome.
I'll touch I'll touch on first the three C's. Kind of this is the depiction of the self leader. This is the character, the skills that they have. And so the first pillar is clarity. So if you're leading yourself, then you probably have clarity in terms of the meaning behind what you want to accomplish and do, as well as the actual goals that you have broken down into step-by-step processes that seem manageable, as well as you've planned for potential setbacks. So before I move on to the next C, how does that sound?
It sounded great. And I like how you actually mention step-by-step processes that actually are manageable. Because I think a lot of people skip over the manageable part. They kind of look at something as like, oh, I just need to, basically climb this mountain. And it's like, that's not manageable for a lot of people. So I think that's great that you depict it in that way.
And each one of these components has different skill, exercises that you can do to build skills in that pillar. So for example, if you picked a goal, you had a huge goal, it would be, okay, let's say this is an annual goal. What do you need to accomplish? The one most important thing you need to accomplish for that goal each month. So let's say a year from now, I want to buy a house. So moving backwards, every month for this year, what do I have to do to buy that house? So maybe the first month is just kind of reviewing, planning what I want in a house, or understanding the process of buying a house. The next stage could be, okay, so financial planning. What do I really need to do to create like a better financial status for myself? The next stage could be reviewing different locations and places or brokers. So you basically create a step for yourself each time to lead you to your ultimate goal. And then you can break that down even further and look at specific weeks. And then you also plan for potential setbacks. So what could get in the way this month of me accomplishing this goal, and how can I plan for that?
I like that a lot. So do you ever break it down to days as well, since you break it down to the weeks?
So for myself, yes. For clients, that is a recommendation, but I don't have that much direct oversight. But really, so the reason why clarity is so important is because if you've ever felt stuck in your life, like you haven't, you weren't able to lead yourself, you probably weren't really sure where to start. Right? You felt kind of lost. You felt maybe overwhelmed. You felt anxious about the amount of work that you probably had to do. And so sitting down and really putting this on paper, even if you don't directly follow the plan that you set for yourself, because life happens, gives you a sense of clarity and lets you kind of take those steps forward.
Yeah, for sure.
And I remember I've experienced moments like that where it's oh, I have so much stuff to do and I only get one thing done. And I write it down, but I don't write it down in detail or anything. So then when I come back to it later, I'm like, well, that doesn't even really seem important. So I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah. Our to-do list keeps piling up until we just don't do anything on it.
Yeah. Basically. Yeah.
So it may seem fairly simple, but too often, we get this idea of what we want to do. And then we don't do it because we don't plan for it. And then we actually think poorly of ourselves because we didn't actually do it. And so it's like this vicious cycle that ends up just strengthening your inner critic and negative self-talk, and leads to just ultimately you doing absolutely nothing and feeling bad about it.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely remember times where that happened. So what are the other 3 C's?
Well, other 2.
Oh, other 2. Yeah, sorry. I can't count today.
So after you've developed some clarity and connected to your why, the next C is confidence. And there's 2 really main components of confidence, and that's self-worth. So that's really believing in who you are and what you're doing and what you're capable of. And then also just the skills component. So your belief in actually being able to do it and having the skills to do that thing. I kind of mentioned the inner critic, and too often we avoid doing things because we don't think that we're good enough to do them.
Yeah.
And so, a self-leader is someone that believes in their own worth and believes in their skills towards what they want to do and what they want to accomplish, or, take steps to create that belief.
Yeah, definitely. And there's been so many times in my career personally, where I kind of talked myself out of doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And it was weird because when I finally got the courage to do what I wanted, it took literally a few minutes or a few seconds. And it was like one of the easiest things ever. And it was like, man, I talked myself out of this for like weeks, and it took literally minutes. All I had to do was like say this thing or ask, and it just took forever. And I think it takes the wind out of so many entrepreneurs, sales to really move forward.
Yeah. And the learning a new skill and planning, I mean, there's so many resources available to us. It is, I think that's kind of pretty self-explanatory. Maybe even finding a mentor to help kind of build that belief in your own skills and abilities to create that, so you have actual skills and abilities. But I really want to focus on inner confidence and inner worth, because that does, as you mentioned, hold a lot of people back from leading themselves and taking action. And our inner critic hasn't really we haven't really been fighting against it in the right way. I think too often self-help advice promotes that if you are kind of underconfident about something, to ride it out, or to fight it. And those two strategies just don't work very well. What I've seen to be really successful with clients, as well as myself, is to lead with curiosity at all times in your life and through all emotions, because emotions can control you, because there's no space between the emotion and action. So you don't have a chance to really pause, disassociate yourself from the emotion, take a step back, and then kind of process it. So you create room so you can act. So instead, maybe you're angry, maybe you're frustrated, which you're underconfident, you're feeling, you're allowing your own emotions to control your actions. So being curious allows you to kind of take a step back from your inner critic and from things that are holding you back, and kind of understand where that's coming from. So you can provide evidence to yourself to kind of say, no, I can do this. I can actually take action here, and I can actually take a step forward, because I am not this person that my mind is telling myself that I am, because I have all of these different exhibits to prove otherwise.
Awesome. That's amazing. And I think taking that analytical standpoint on it could definitely help to, push more people forward and just make sense of that thing that they are usually afraid of. Mm-hmm. So just out of curiosity, is curiosity the last C, or?
So it's control, because so it kind of blends in with confidence. So control is emotional awareness and management, and relationship awareness and management. Control is really important for a self-leader, because if you're trying to feel successful, if you're trying to take action on something, then you really need to have boundaries, and you really need to understand yourself. And those boundaries, so there's been a lot of talk about like work-life balance. And for an entrepreneur, that can be tough, because you just want to grind and hustle.
Yeah.
But balance is really tough, because if you want to get something done, sometimes you have to work more hours than you'd like. And if you try for balance, you may be very disappointed. But if you try for harmony, where you are, you're satisfied in your relationships, you're satisfied in your social life, you are satisfied in your intimate life, and you're satisfied in your work life. If you actually have harmony, now that doesn't always mean balance, but you are incredibly fulfilled. And so where do you need to create greater boundaries in your life? And where can you kind of alter your mindset, per se, in terms of what is work-life harmony mean to you, and what do you need from your relationships, intimate and social? So that's really what control stands for.
I absolutely love the word harmony, because I don't know, it's just kind of self-explanatory. You're not always going to be like a 50-50 Libra scale where it's just totally just balanced, just straight across the board. But it all works together for the good. So I think harmony is a perfect way to explain it.
Yeah. And I agree with that too, because what I found in my life is that there's some things that just don't take a lot of time. And I think a lot of people, they assess balance by time instead of harmony, which is how well it works together. Mm-hmm. So it's like out of their, 4 hours of free time they have, they try to split that up equally between, exercising, spending time with family, having a hobby and something like that. And it's like, well, it's like, do you really need to work out for a whole hour? Like, and sometimes it's just like, it's more harmonic to, spend 10 to 20 minutes here and then 2 hours there. And it just works better, a lot better than, trying to split things up equally and achieve balance from what I've seen. And I know, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say to add to that, self-leaders have a level of emotional awareness about themselves, and they know how to kind of make sure their emotions aren't keeping them from doing the things they need to do for themselves and in their life. And they use that to help them create greater harmony in their life through, saying no to things. And if something else comes up that they really want to spend their time in, if they say yes to it, they say no to something else. So instead of, you adding more to the plate, kind of like, go to the buffet and you fill your plate too full, you're not gonna be able to eat everything. So they are very good at choosing, certain things. If we're gonna have dessert today, maybe they're gonna cut out something else.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
And I don't remember, did you touch on the live system and how that actually works together with the 3 C's of self-leadership?
Mm-hmm. So the 3 C's is really like this persona of a self-leader. What is really encompassed in leading yourself, and the live system is how you can lead yourself in a way that brings you meaning. And so live stands for life, intentions, values, and expectations. And very, very briefly, life are the goals that we discussed, broken down into manageable chunks. Intentions are really your beliefs regarding those goals, as well as what time you're investing and where you're investing it. And they need to be aligned with your actual goals for work, for life, for your relationships. A good example I give is for someone that is dating and looking for a long-term partner, but is dating people that don't really fit the values they have for themselves, or maybe having a lot of one-night stands. It's not very intentional. And I used to work in the field of dating and relationships, so I have a lot of relationship examples. So V stands for values, and understanding your core sense of self, really where your attitudes and behaviors come from, and understanding how those align to your goals. And if they don't align to your goals, then we need to either alter your perception or alter your goals, because you won't be fulfilled if they don't. And then E stands for expectations. So that relates to the expectations you have for yourself in relation to, like, what is success, what I really want in my life, what standards do you hold yourself to, and then also the standards you hold people in your life to. So what expectations you have for work, for your friends, for your relationships. And that can be broken down into really cultivating an environment that serves your goals and your values. So everything is just all about intentional, aligned living to help you reach your goals, lead yourself, and ultimately find and create fulfillment.
That's awesome.
that is.
Yeah.
And I'm like sitting here like processing it. Like I'm asking myself these questions as you're asking them.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's a lot to take in. I mean, honestly, like it took me 8 years to figure all this stuff out. And, I've been working as a coach in this field, using these systems for the past 3. So listeners and yourself, don't, just take some time, take a step back, listen to a little bit, come back, listen to the next part, because it is a process, and it's a lifestyle. It is completely a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
So what is the main takeaway you will want people to really get from this podcast episode with you?
It really is that you have the power to do and be anything, and everything that you do each and every day is a decision that you are specifically making. If you don't feel happy at work, you don't feel engaged at work, well, your work can't give you meaning. So what can you do to take control and create greater meaning for yourself right now, each and every day? And so I'd say that the one thing that I'd love for everyone to take away is just to hold yourself more accountable, and to feel empowered about what you can do and what you can create for yourself. And to remember that the most important leader is the one that actually lives inside you.
Awesome.
I like that a lot.
That's great.
Just taking responsibility for how you feel, pretty much.
Yeah. So as you know, you're on the Abundant Culture podcast. So we have to ask every single guest we can this question. And the question is, how do you spread abundance in your life?
And going along with kind of the theme of you are your own leader, it's and accountability and empowerment. It really is about promoting this mindset that is like the opposite of scarcity. If you can accomplish anything, then the world actually is full of abundance. And so I work with clients each and every day, or host events in Chicago every month, really just focus on this idea that scarcity, the scarcity mindset is not real, and it's self-imposed.
Yeah.
And we need to all have an abundant mindset. We can all benefit from that.
For sure. And I'm pretty sure there's somebody that's listening to this podcast or will be listening to this podcast, and they want to meet you. They want to work with you. Maybe they want to find more meaning in their work, or maybe they want to find meaning in their own entrepreneurial endeavor. So how would that person actually reach out to you and get in contact?
Yeah, so I'm most active on LinkedIn and Instagram. You can just look up Dr. Benjamin Ritter and I pop up. But you can also just go to liveforyourselfconsulting.com. That's just liveforyourselfconsulting.com. And my email's there, my phone number's there. You can leave a comment, submit a form. I respond basically to everything.
Awesome. So thank you once again for coming onto the podcast. I think after everybody listens to this episode, they're kind of going to be like questioning themselves and like their values and their expectations, and just pretty much kind of going through those systems as much as they can on their own, so that they could create, more fulfillment and meaning in whatever they're doing in life. So I think this episode was like much needed. Like it really helps you figure out, what questions should I be asking myself?
Yeah, definitely. So we definitely appreciate having you on today.
Yes.
Thank you. And I mean, if you or your listeners are just kind of thinking like, what are these things called values? I have no idea. I don't even know where to start. There are some assessments online you could take, but if you want a quick, easy activity, all you have to do is think back on your top 5 favorite memories and your top 5 least favorite memories. Write them out, right where you were, what you were doing, just as detailed as you can. And then start looking for similarities and themes in terms of your happiest memories. What are the themes there that you can pull from, that can kind of relate to your values? Is it adventure? Is it stability? Is it openness? Is it health? And then also from the memories that are your unhappiest, least favorite, what are the opposite of those? And those will really start helping you kind of build your list of values and help you understand where you find the most meaning in your life.
Awesome.
That is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll definitely be in contact with you, and you never know, you might be on for another part 2 one day, a sequel.
I'd love to. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So that's all we have for today, folks. I hope you got as much value out of this as we did. Keep in mind, the only way we can improve is through constructive feedback. So remember to rate and review this episode. Also, you are not the only person that needs to know this super valuable information. So be sure to subscribe and share as well. Stay tuned for the next episode, and remember to always spread abundance. Peace.